coaching position?
It's been really good, you know, having Coach Plo around still is helping that process, and the community's been really supportive, and we've got good kids here, so it makes the job a lot easier. When you've got good support, good hardworking kids, you know, it makes coaches look a lot better. Well, something that my dad instilled in me was a strong work ethic. You know, you show up early, you stay late, and you work harder than anybody else can. You know, and that generally is a recipe for success. So that just coming in, working hard, being accountable, these are things he really instilled in me, which have impacted, you know, me as a coach, as a player, as a coach, as a human being. You know, so that would be my biggest thing is the work ethic and accountability, things like that. Well, I think the ideal team, the recipe for success as far as football is concerned, is you have to be able to run the ball and you have to be able to stop the run. You have to be really good in the kicking game, special teams, because it's a third of the game, but you can't spend a third of your time doing that. So we've got to spend good quality time on the kicking game, and then we've got to be able to stop the run, and we've got to be able to run the ball. I think those are big key points in a successful football team. Well, I've been around football my whole life, so the X's and O's, the plays that you run, that stuff comes easy. It's all the other stuff, the motivating kids, which I've been good at, but Coach does a great job motivating players. He does a great job, having fun at practice, having good practices, and there's all the extra stuff that head coaches have to do. Organizational things, the administration of a team. That's the stuff that he's really been able to help me a lot with, and he's got a winning recipe here, and so I'm just trying to put my own spices in that same recipe to keep it going. It's hard to pinpoint key players because there's 11 guys on the field at a time, and we've got 22 guys that are going to start for us, offense and defense, and so I'd be telling you 22 names right now because there's not one guy that's more important than the other. Andrew Lautzenizer is shown to be a warrior in camp. He's going to be a guy we count on that offensive line. We've got battles going everywhere. We've got speed. Levi Irish is going to be a punishing runner. That's going to be a big deal. Walker Jacobson's probably going to be leading the team in tackles, as any good middle linebacker should. We've got a good group of kids all over the field, and we're going to have to count on everybody. Our biggest goal as coaches is to help kids become young men by teaching them things like hard work ethic, accountability, trustworthiness, right? And by doing these things, generally, if we're going in the right direction, that'll transfer to wins on the football field. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to be 6-2 and go into the playoffs, whatever. I don't know, but I do know that we're going to show up, we're going to be prepared, we're going to play hard, and we're going to finish. And generally, when you do those things, it transfers to more wins than losses. And when you do things the right way, you usually have success. So from where things have been and the direction we've headed up until this point of our off season and our season, we're heading in the right direction, and I think we're going to see some success, hopefully. Every week we're going to play the team that we've got up against us, because there's always teams. It's like I told you guys in the beginning of camp, when you put pads on, there's always a guy that surprises you and always a guy that disappoints you. So going into it, you've got to treat every team like that's the state champion, because there's always teams that you think aren't going to be very good, and they are. And there's teams that you think are going to be really good, and then they aren't that good. So every week, we've got stiff competition. And that's the great thing about being in Sandpoint, is we're playing a lot of 5A teams. We have a lot of really good competition that we get to see. So, I'm not going to tell you this team's good, this team. They're all good as far as I'm concerned. And we're going to go into every week with our best game plan, and we're going to play our hardest, and we're going to finish the games. I think there's a word that I've always been a big fan of, and it's integrity. I want when people to think of Sandpoint Bulldog football, I want them to think of integrity. And all those other terms go along with that. Work ethic, accountability, trustworthiness, all these things. Like I said before, our goal is to take kids and build them into young men. And if you don't have integrity, there's no way you can be the type of young man that we want you to be. So when people think of Bulldog football, I want them to think of integrity, because we are hardworking. We're going to be trustworthy. We're going to be accountable. We're going to do the right things on and off the field. Okay, we're going to be community service members, things like that. That's part of being a person of high integrity. So. Well, I think you've got to be a student of the game is a huge portion of it. Knowing what's going on and why it's going on, why we run the plays we do, how our plays all work. Don't just know your job, know everybody's job. And then football goes from being like this to being like this. You see the grand scheme, the big picture, and you can only do that by studying film and being a student of the game. Also physically, you've got to be in the weight room, you've got to be out on the field, running, doing the off-season stuff to prepare yourself to play. You talked about guys showing up in the summer versus guys that aren't. It's not that I want to play a guy because he was here. I play the guys that oftentimes guys that were here in the summer are better ready to play because they have gotten themselves in shape, they've gotten themselves stronger, and they've learned more. So if you show up in August, well, you're 3 months behind the guy that was here all summer, if that makes sense. Not to say you're not a better player and you won't play, but generally what I've found is the guys that are around are the guys that are more prepared to play. So early on in the season especially, they're the ones that get to play. I think that their Post Falls is definitely going to have a fire to win for that coach, because I know what he meant to their program and for a long time, and those kids loved him and they're going to want to play hard for him. I think you guys are starting to understand who I am and what I am and starting to want to play for me. I don't want to make it about that, though. I want Sandpoint football to show up and play hard no matter what circumstance it is. Whether we're playing in our stadium, in the Kibbe Dome, in someone else's stadium, or whether we're lined up in the parking lot. I want us to show up and we're going to play as hard as we can every second of every day for the rest of our lives, not just on the football field, if that makes sense. It may be somewhat a source of motivation, but I don't want that motivation to have to be there, if that makes sense. I want us to go hard whether my father passed away or not, because that's what we do as Sandpoint Bulldogs. We're just going to play as hard as we can every second and fly around and make plays, because that's what you do as a football player. To play less than your very best would be a disservice to the game, if that makes sense to you. That's something that we'll have to discuss, but that's a possibility. We'll have to make it a little more, we'll have to get some parameters here as to what's going on, because obviously, there's a reason why I grow my hair out. So if I dread it and I can't donate it, then I can't really do that. Because this is a large investment. This is 5 years of my life, you know what I mean? So, but we'll talk more about that.
All right.
Neither here nor there, right?
Sweet.